Hi, everyone. Thank you for checking out this issue of The Reluctant Free Agent, where I have the pleasure of interviewing Jana Spriggs, who I'll introduce in a moment. And I just want to start by noticing or making a note about how she and I connected, because this was sort of a moment for me that stood out um, in an interesting way. I had interviewed Jennifer McDonald a few weeks ago, and Jana reached out to me and commented on the interview. And then she acknowledged that she has a speech impairment and added that that's been an added element in this tough hiring market. And for those of you who are reluctant free agents and looking for work, you know it's tough out there, that it's really hard. And what struck me, Jana, about your message to me was that I had, sometimes we get so focused on our own experience or thinking about things that I hadn't really stepped out of my own experience to think about, well, what would the market be like right now for someone with a disability on top of the hiring market? So, of course, I jumped right on that. And I'm like, you want to be on my podcast? And Jana graciously said yes. So, Jana, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me in your space. This is a great opportunity.
Well, it's a great opportunity, I think, for me as well, and for people listening to this or watching it, because, as I said, I think sometimes we get caught up in our own experience that we don't consider other people's experiences as well. And at some point later on, I want to move past your experience to also looking at for hiring managers, sort of shifting their experiences in some ways too. So thank you for being on here. And I really appreciate the fact that you emailed me, because I don't know when. I hope to think at some point I would have gotten to this conversation, but I wasn't there yet. So thank you. It's always a good reminder to realize what we're not considering. So, Jana, for starters, maybe you could just share a little bit about your experience as you've been looking for work and struggling like the rest of us, but from your take and your experience.
Yeah. So, um, it was a bereavement where I found myself stepping away from my position at a nonprofit. Mine was on to leave was just not enough for me. I knew that I couldn't be who I wanted to be or who my team needed me to be in that role because I wasn't the same person who left on what came to be my last day. The change in my life taught me that I could be broken, but I was still grow. The connection I made would be had I not taken that time for my wellness and my mental health. I faced that this path with intention, losing myself and the difference I made professionally. I found a natural feeling in the experience. The fact that the job search is hard for everyone right now can be a comfort for some people, but it may put even more pressure on others like myself. However, I still believe that someday I can make a difference again.
Well, Jana, you just gave me so much information, and we have talked. I mean, I don't know if people know this, but when I meet with people, when we do these interviews, we met before today to talk about this, and I don't think I fully understood until now the full context under which you had decided to leave your role. I mean, it sounds like it was really twofold. One, feeling like you needed time to take care of yourself, and that you also really weren't able to function optimally at the time due to grieving, it sounds like. And yeah, and that's just, it's funny. We talk about the term reluctant free agent, and a lot of people think about the idea of people being laid off or their jobs eliminated, but also sometimes people leave jobs by choice, but it's with a sense of reluctance, because even though you're making a choice that feels right to you, that the circumstances aren't those which you chose. And so, yeah, so you found yourself leaving. Recent, I don't know how long you've been looking for a job now, but it sounds like you're ready to go back into the work world at this point.
Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah.
At a point in my life where my grief is with me every day, and it makes me who I am.
So, well, I'm sorry for your loss. And again, we didn't talk about it in this context, but yes, I'm sorry for your loss. And it sounds like you're at a point where, as you said, it's part of who you are, and you're ready to move forward past this period of more immersive self-care. So when did you start returning to look for jobs?
Well, I started immediately because I thought at that time that that's what I needed. That would make a difference, would make a difference to me in that process.
Yeah.
So I was applying fervently for this job, that job, anything, even position that put me out of my comfort zone. I didn't really apply for jobs that I couldn't do, but I was just looking to find something remote that was the biggest change that I needed.
Yeah.
For other reasons. So I was looking, applying, and then once I got a grip that, okay, I don't have to exhaust myself, that I can remain in a home, which was the most important thing to me. I started laying back and only reestablishing what I wanted and understanding what I needed to be successful.
So it sounds like you had a period of discernment, I guess, in your job search where you've now moved more to think about, like, what is it that I really want for myself? What do I need to be successful? And I know you and I talked about just thinking about the speech impairment, how you would approach employers when you apply for roles and plan for interviews. Would you mind sharing some of that with people, as they're probably wondering the same thing, like what specifically would you do or not do?
Yeah. So, in a specific time period, probably the beginning half of my job search, I was going back and forth between disclosing my disability and my cover letter on my resume. And that because I figured it well all my life saying it doesn't define me. But it does. I define it for myself. Then I was approached on LinkedIn by a couple executive and recruiter. The first person was an executive of a company, a nationwide company, and I actually rescheduled the interview or the meeting because I was so nervous. And I'm like, no, not today. So I rescheduled the interview and I met him virtually. And into 2 minutes of the conversation, I felt like I do when I'm talking to you. He just mentioned my disability right off the bat. And it could have made me feel more comfortable. You know, productive conversation to me also about how my disability can be integrated into a job, into a team, into a mission. So after meeting with him and actually another meeting about 6 months after, I finally decided I am no longer going to go back and forth and have that internal question. Well, am I gonna disclose my disability in this application? Well, I gotta make sure I don't lean onto anything. I just decided the best thing in my life all because of who I am. And my friends, my family, my former teams, all built me up because of who I am.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned something a couple minutes ago about how you said, and I wish I could rewind and you said something like, I define what this disability means to me or how it defines me or in what way it defines me. And so not relying on others to define you by it, but you define yourself. And, you know, as we talk about this, again, it's not that, you know, how do I say this? The challenge isn't the fact that you have a disability. The challenge isn't that you have a disability. It's sort of how you navigate that in the application process and the interview process, and people who are doing the interview, how they respond to that. And in some ways that may be very helpful and empowering, in other ways, not so much. So with that said, do you have, like, based on your experience, and I know you're just one person, that there are many people out there and with different types of disabilities, but based on your personal experience, is there any piece of advice or two or three that you even have for people who are interviewing people and hiring people? I know you and I talked about how years ago, when I was working in an institution where I led a group where we looked at being more inclusive in our interviewing and hiring practices. And one part of that was just as part of the interview process, when you invite someone for an interview, spontaneously on our side, asking them if they're coming to campus or even online, are there any accommodations we can make to help you as you're coming for your interview? And so not leaving it up to the person on the other side who's the applicant, and obviously sort of in a power way has less power than the hiring people to have to ask for it. So that's one thing that we thought about as something that could be helpful, but that's just one thing. I'm sure there's many things that people could do as they're interviewing to just make the path easier for people as they approach an interview.
Well, like you said, I am just one human with a disability. I am not speaking for everyone. I know where I am as far as transparency because of my experiences. I was a different person. Like I said at the beginning of my search, one thing that I learned recently is that I can ask for interview questions ahead of time. This may or may not be considered example, a conversation, and I have to say, away from professional setting, my disability can be motivated, I guess, as having a cognitive disability. Fortunately, I don't experience that much in the professional world recruiting, because often when I share, or only when I share about my disability, accompanied by my education, my experience, my passion. So when I would face my difficulty in an interview, not living up to my standards, because I'm a stickler about well-spoken people. I wasn't thinking that had anything to do with my disability. I was just thinking, oh, that was a really poor example of how I got through a conflict. And then I realized that my typical anxiety was related to my disability. Preparing for this interview, I wrote out my answers, and I'm like, okay, yeah. And then I started reading them out loud. I'm like, yeah, that's gotta go. That's gotta go. That's gotta go. Because if someone sounds sensitive or just too difficult for me to physically express. So that was a big learning curve, and there are many more for each individual.
Well, you said something earlier on about asking for questions in advance. And I think, I've heard some people do that, just for applicants in general, that they give them the questions in advance, which I think people have mixed feelings about. And it's interesting because somehow people think it's going to be a big advantage, but you make a good point about how you can write it out and practice speaking it, and how that's very helpful for you in being able to articulate your answers during the interview. Another takeaway that you said that I think is really important for everyone is to not make assumptions about someone based on their disability, and how you feel that sometimes people may be making assumptions about your cognitive ability because of your speech impairment, which of course is totally, what's the word? I mean, it's unfair, but it's also a big leap from one thing to the next, but it is something that you clearly have experienced. And so that's, again, thinking of, as people interview, not making assumptions based on that one disability is necessarily associated with anything else. Yeah. So anything that you haven't mentioned yet that would be helpful for employers to know? I mean, you could probably write a whole book on this. So that's a big question in a short period of time, but
it's important for everyone to find a purpose. And everyone who is currently reluctant free agent, which I think that term is phenomenal in so many different ways. Just I encourage hiring teams executives can just be more open. I mean, we talk about all the time diversity. However, personally, I don't see many people on commercials or on advertisements online who have speech impairment. You see people in wheelchairs and people of different cultures, and there's even more groups that are not being highlighted in the same way. And I think that's something that needs to be brought to many people's spaces.
Right. So no longer sort of the idea of invisibility, that we're not seeing examples of people with disabilities, whether it's in advertisements or, as you were saying that, I was thinking about how LinkedIn now has that video feature that all these people are making videos on LinkedIn. And I've done that too, like a 30-second clip. And I haven't seen a video with someone with a disability that I could recognize in the video. You know, there are disabilities that might not necessarily show themselves in a video, but with that said, the videos present as people without having disabilities. Whether or not that's true, we don't know. But I think you make a good point that, again, there's a sense of a lack of presence or a lack of visibility. Yeah. So as you've been looking for work and thinking about how to present yourself as a candidate, which we all do, and you have another layer as you're considering that, what have you learned about yourself in this process?
I learned that learning is fluid It's who we are as individuals and how we navigate our moral compass that really fits us into a role. It's the culture that we determine and where we can be ourselves and grow into who we want to be.
Mm.
I wasn't ready to concede to my disability. Looking back into my previous roles, they were very consumer facing, and that took a toll on me, my relationship, my mental wellness. And so I think in the moment when I ask myself, did I make the right choice by stepping what really helped me get through was the support from my friends, people who I work with now in high positions in organizations who I couldn't be proud of, reminding me that my time with that organization have found its end in this space that I created for myself in looking for a job. I really gained perspective that the safe or safe space for me on the scene is in the background. That doesn't take away from who I am or the difference I want to make. It's just a one reality and who I want to be and my mission. Because at the end of the day, I just want to be productive and work with people who see me for me and find a greater meaning.
There's, well, I have so much to say, but I'm not going to over talk about this. But I think two things. I love the fact that you said it helped you to better find your mission. That I think sometimes, when we're not working, it feels like it's hard in so many ways. But we could also use this as a time to really reflect on where we want to go and if we want the same type of job we had before or the same type of setting or the same type of roles, and also what is most important to us. So I love that. And I also love that just you mentioned how you've gotten support from so many people, because I talk so much about just the importance of connection, and for people who aren't working, sometimes when you're sitting at home, today on a Monday, like I'm the only one in my house. And so I can feel like, well, everyone's out is working except for me. Although I am working, this is work. But who aren't working for a company except for me, it can feel lonely and isolating. So I think supports are so important. So I'm glad you mentioned that. It's really great to have people we care about and who care about us.
Yeah,
Stay in touch.
professionally and
Yes.
personally, I cannot imagine who I would be without my family, the family that I was born into, and the family that I created.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice to have family, both by birth and people who we've created and who continue to support us. It's so powerful. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And, as we think about wrapping up our conversation, I mean, a lot of this is just about, I'll try and articulate this. I feel like a lot of this is just the idea of getting support when we are interviewing or people are interviewing us, or if I'm interviewing someone. I guess being curious and not making assumptions, and meeting people and getting to know them and their strengths, and not prejudging anything. Also, you're someone who's clearly resilient. You are in there, looking for a job. You reached out to me and agreed to do this interview, which kudos. Not everyone wants to be interviewed, so thank you. What are you looking for a job? I want to give you a chance too to just pitch. Like if someone's watching this and is like, "Oh, I'd love to work with Jana," but they might not even know what you're looking for.
I really like to work with you too, or just connect and have a conversation. So please look me up. Both teaching and administration are a natural born of my skills, my personality, and my experiences. Education and helping human services are paths that I walk, but my interest lies within mission and Michigan is where my story has been written with love and dreams. However, I'm a traveler and I am transiting towards I get established on a team. Something else that's important to me, which I touch upon, is educating people in professional spaces. So if you are someone who leads a team or is part of a team and would like again just to have a conversation about how to integrate movement into your organization about disability, I would be more than happy to meet with you and do that with you.
Excellent. And I am going to, when I publish this newsletter, I'm going to put your LinkedIn profile link to it. So you talked about reaching out to you. So does that work for you? People reaching out on LinkedIn and then you could message with someone or go from there.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm so glad we had a chance to meet and to connect, and I'm looking forward to sharing this with people who read my newsletter. So, Jana, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
You're welcome. So, goodbye, everyone. Thanks for watching. Bye.